I want to preface this video by just telling you guys that it seemed like my recordings had no audio, so I had to re-record over the video footage. In that case, what I would do is, because obviously I'm not giving any interaction directly to what I'm doing, is what I would suggest you guys is maybe watch a part of the video first, understand what's happening, go do it, and then come back to the video instead of trying to follow step by step. Because now I'm being reactive to the video and not being interactive. So it's important to note that when commands and stuff are being used, and when I'm describing what's happening, it might be after the fact as well. So maybe watch a part of the video first, understand what's happening or try to get a grasp of what's happening, go do it and apply it. I think it's also a more effective way of learning instead of just following step by step. Right, let's get into modeling. And we're just going to import our reference planes. Now you'll notice that I'm actually doing this voiceover instead of having it in the video. So once everything was recorded, there was no sound, so here we are. So we're basically just choosing the axes on which the references has to be placed down. And basically what we're doing here is just setting up the size. So you can use the calibrate command if you right click calibrate and just typing in the values that we have, so you can get more of a real world scale for it. Another thing you can actually do is, create a box and then check the sizes to that as well. It's an easy way to also see if your reference is centered. That was just a quick test to see it's actually sized up, and now we'll create, basically size this guy up to the full height of this whole object. So save your project. And basically what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to find, I have a Picatinny rail base that I already have. This will be included as well, so just upload it to your project. You can just right click and import it, and it will already have a nice Picatinny rail base for you to work from. So you can see, obviously, stuff is not centered. So you know that that Picatinny rail is centered. And we're going to have to change that. So what we're doing here is just selecting that face, changing the pivot to the center of the object, and then enabling our origin so we can actually snap the object that we have to the center. So now we know everything is center. And the way the reference is set up is that it should be as center as possible, but it might not be. So what we're gonna do here is just build a quick base for the mount, but this will obviously change when we're starting to focus on the mount. For now, it's more just setting up some base shapes for it, get the height correct, so we can work on the actual main shape. So all I'm doing here is just looking at the reference and then seeing how I should scale this. This is very relative. Like I said, we'll refine this a little bit later, and this will inform some other decisions. This is just to get stuff uh, blocked out. I mean, it's essentially what we're doing here is just blocking out shapes. Now, in a more traditional sense of the word blockout, you would just creating boxes and, shapes that fills the space that has the right dimensions. So, but I mean, in Fusion, it makes it really easy to just kind of start detailing stuff in. So, if you have some dimensions down already, stuff like that, it already makes it easier. So, pressing Q, push pull, and then just pulling those faces in. So just playing around, seeing if we can get it blocked out a little bit closer to what it looks like in the reference. Honestly, I don't think you need to spend as much time on it as I'm doing here, because this will get refined a little later, as you'll see we'll be working from some technical drawings, technical specs. So we're enabling our main shape here, and then we're just gonna be pulling it down. And now we're just gonna start blocking out some of the other shapes. So we know that those dials in the back have a round base, and then it has these triangular edges, I guess what you want to call them. So it's easy to kind of get a rough estimate of how big these things are. Now, as you can see, the device feels a little bit thick right now. Everything feels very thick. So it's very important to not just jump in and start detailing stuff out, as we're all just testing dimensions. It's, sometimes when you pick up technical specs from online, you don't know exactly how stuff was measured. Does it include a mount? Was it with the mount, not with the mount? Stuff like that. Um, and if you can find some technical specs, that would help a lot. So, so just using basic commands to kind of bring these things to life. So at the moment, just using circular shapes, you can see we're building a lot of cylinders, and using a rectangle command here. It's totally fine to be a little bit unsure at this point, because at this we're still testing out dimensions and blocking out shapes, seeing how stuff has to look. You have to understand as well, like when you have reference that you're working off, especially like a photo, sometimes you have uh, perspective that kind of warps how these things look. So you can get a few things wrong. Like you can see here, I was a little bit confused. Like, why is the reference not matching up to the center? So it's more important to me to actually get the shapes blocked out to the right correct shape, instead of actually and yeah, width, instead of getting it exactly centered. We can always do that a little bit later. For now, we're just getting stuff to line up with what we're seeing in our reference. So we're still making very basic shapes here. Duplicating it over. So you can just click on the object, Control C, Control V. There you go. You have a copy. You know, you can just mirror it over to the other side. Just adding in an extra shape. So basically, what I'm doing here is slowly but surely churning out the block out. As you can see here already, I'm getting a little bit annoyed with the fact that that battery cap is not completely centered. And we'll sort this out a little bit later. It's very important to keep an eye on multiple references to see exactly how things look if you're not lucky enough to get technical specs or anything like that. You kind of have to work with what you got. Now, as you can see, I snapped those to the top of the box. The reason for that is um, when you have dimensions, the box that we created, that kind of encapsulates everything that's inside of that. Imagine it as being a transform box. So it's not actually how big this whole thing is. It shows out literally the max height, the max width, um, and the max length for the object. So it's not actually how big the object is, but more a bounding box of sorts. So now that we have our topmost objects created and everything, we can kind of start snapping things back together. Kind of make the box smaller so we can see exactly how high these things have to be. So basically what we're doing here is creating another bounding box because we started moving stuff down again, and you kind of just want to get some stuff more into place so you can see exactly how high stuff is. So it's very important to keep your eye on the dimensions. Just work with what we've got. So now we're just doing an align command. You can see I grabbing the edge, make sure that you're in body mode, and then you can just snap align it to the middle of that face. We're going to do the same thing here. Grab that edge. Oops. So just go into a line, grab that edge, and then just grab that center pivot on this destination mesh. Now we can just move this into place. So slowly but surely we're getting things into place. Blockout is kind of where we experiment, getting shapes to look good. And concepting blockout phase is also very important, as to animation can see how it looks in first person and how it reads. But I mean, in props, it plays a big role as well, especially if you don't have all the dimensions to work with and all that stuff. So so just looking at the reference, seeing exactly what's going on there, kind of just getting shapes a little bit more blocked out, and how dimensions and all that stuff is reading. You can see we're snapping these things, getting everything more centered. I will use a slot, and basically what we're doing here is just using the center point of that cylinder, so we can make sure that our slots are perfectly centered with our object. You can double click on edges, press M, and then you can move, even if you're in a sketch. You just have to be wary sometimes about uh, the constraints. So if you want to delete edges, you just press T. So what I'm trying to do here is just clean up the sketch a little bit, because now we have extra edges. Kind of on a straight line, make sure that stuff is perfect. So again, using the center point, snapping it to that edge, using the extrude command, push and pull those faces out. Select the object, press M for move, and then we'll just do a split. So Shift S is my command, and we just split that object with the edge over there. So we have a nice straight split, and then you can just press Q and push it all the way out. And I'll start just getting these things in place, these shapes in place for the other ones as well. Now, obviously, we'll most probably refine one and then copy them over again. So there's actually no point in doing it in the blockout stage, but it's nice to do it in the blockout stage, just to have some uh, resemblance of those shapes in there, just so you can double check your dimensions. So all I did there was just uh, grab the face and then just move it down, snapped it down. And what we're doing here is just grabbing those objects and just mirroring it over. So minus control shift S. I'm not sure if that's a default command, but that's what I'm using. So use a line command here. You can see it's already in my box there, but there you go. Snapping those to the center. And then you can just use the move, put your pivot on that face, and then snap it to that face over there. That way you have a nice, perfectly centered and aligned object. So very simple stuff. But that should basically conclude our blockout phase.